Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here is the host of The Pleasure Zone, sex, relationship, and intimacy coach and holistic health practitioner, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, my sweet pleasure seekers. My name is Milica Jelenic, and I have been playing in and with the pleasure zone my whole life. However, I've been creating this show, this production for well over 10 years now. And every time I do a show, I often think, have I done an episode about this yet? And I'll have to say, I haven't actually had this particular title as an episode, specifically talking about mindfulness connected to intimacy. And I do talk about mindful practices, but I haven't specifically dedicated a show to mindful intimacy for deeper emotional and physical connection. So I think what we're going to do is also look at what is mindfulness, because it is a word that a lot of people just kind of throw out there a lot. Mindfulness is a practice where you are paying attention to the here and now. It's where you're paying attention to your thoughts, your feelings, and emotions, and you're not judging them. And in part of mindful practice, you also begin to start to see things about yourself too. As you're not judging them, you start to see things about yourself in different ways. So the non-judgment practice, you've probably heard shows, in the last 10 years where I've talked about different tools to be able to get out of judgment. So non-judgment, especially when it comes to sex, is very helpful. If you have a really curious partner, if you're really curious, if you're wanting to deepen your relationship and become more open to your partner and have more intimacy, non-judgment is very helpful. That doesn't mean non-discernment, and it also doesn't mean that you don't choose what works for you. So you could be aware of, say, for example, you might think, well, corporophilia is not really my thing, but I'm not judging it as good or bad. I just am aware that it's not something that I would enjoy. Now, if you're wondering what that is, I'd encourage you to go look that up, because if I define corporophilia on here, I'll probably get this episode banned. So because I'm using a proper word, and it's not a commonly used word, I don't think it'll get banned. So yeah, I just want to I'm not into it myself, but it's whatever works for the people who are playing in and with that kink. So we've got other things that go on with mindfulness. And one of the things with mindfulness, so being present in the moment, and when you are present in the moment, you start to notice things. You start to put your energy is more directed at certain things. So some people call it intentionality, or being intentional with your thoughts and your feelings, and where your energy is going, where your attention is going. So some of those intentional things, intentional focus, some ways to gain that, you can do it through observation. I would say, like, a lot of people don't even realize they do it when they're doing it. Like, I've watched people come to my house, sit at my dining room table, and stare at birds. And what they're doing is having an intentional focus, and the birds become like meditation. And then one of the things you might add to that, for example, is breath work or meditation, or the intentional focus of going through your body and doing, like, checking from head to toe. How is your body feeling? What are you sensing? You start to become really familiar with your body, pains, emotions that are sitting in the body, as well as traumas, old traumas that might be sitting in there as well. So there's a few things that you might become aware of through doing different intentional focuses. I've done it quite a few episodes on taking you through your body with all of your senses. That is a form of mindfulness. So one of the other things with mindfulness is that curiosity that I mentioned, like being able to have that curiosity with your partner and openness with your partner in relationship and with yourself. Everything can feel new and exciting, and you start to be so aware of that moment, that that moment is so different than the last moment, that everything is new and exciting and fun. It's kind of like seeing the world through through children's eyes, through the eyes of children who haven't, say, lived through an extreme amount of trauma, and still have that playfulness and excitement that can come up when you are a child and still having fun. So that is, those are some of the things we want to become aware of in mindfulness. And why do I talk about this stuff? One of the reasons I talk about this is that I, for a very long time, have been working with people with their bodies, their, so yeah, I work with people with their bodies for health and for their, also for their relationships. So between working on people with their health, what I started to notice was that a lot of people were coming to me and mentioning things about sexual dysfunction. It just happened to be a trend, even from the very start. And I found that quite fascinating, that it was like from the very start, I would have people shyly kind of mention to me that there was like sexual dysfunction going on. And and then they would wonder, like, can I work with that? Absolutely, because the body is all connected. So you're, whether you have an emotional component to why you have a sexual dysfunction, or whether there's physiological things, whatever, there's usually multiple things going on. Whatever they happen to be, there are lots of ways to find resolution for those. And so, why I talk about all this stuff is because I love to bring awareness to the world. I love to bring education to the world and help you find solutions to maybe things you hadn't even realized you could have, like a simple solution to, like getting the presence and getting out of judgment can really be helpful. Being able to pay attention to your lover in that moment, having that intentional focus with yourself and then with your partner, doing breathing exercises with a partner is incredibly intense and such an amazing way to connect. So when we're talking about the components of mindfulness to increase intimacy, the reason we're doing this is because becoming aware of yourself will only ever enhance your relationships with other people. What it will also do is will help you become aware of the relationships that are working for you and aren't working for you. And sometimes people leave your life. That happens. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. It depends on how and where you're all growing. So mindfulness is a funny word too. I don't really have a substitute for it right now, so we're just going to play with it. I think like being conscious awareness is another way to look at it, uh, depending on how people like want to talk about it. Mindfulness does sound like your mind is full rather than having it feel clear. Uh, so so it can sound like a bit of a misnomer for sure. What we're really looking at is getting present. So for some people, they call it being grounded, but it's more than that. It's really becoming aware of your surroundings. It's where you have your proprioception and your interoception. If you're not familiar with those are how we perceive our internal and external environments. Those become those senses, those are kind of part of our sensory system, even though we usually are talking about five senses: proprioception, interoception, there's many others, are ways that we perceive our environment, what is a threat, what isn't a threat. And as you do present moment awareness, and intentional focus and intentional breathing, you start to become aware of what is actually in your environment that might be a threat and what isn't. And so the more you can be relaxed, the more you can connect. The funniest thing is our nervous systems, as they are in fight or flight, they disconnect. All they do is they tell your body, you need to survive, that fight or flight, right? You need to survive. We are now in survival mode. You might prolong that and end up in frozen because you've been, or you could just jump. You could just go not even into fight or flight. You could just freeze. It's a different response in the body and the nervous system. So you go either into like a parasympathetic dominance or a sympathetic dominance when you freeze, parasympathetic dominance when you're in fight or flight, and then you can be calm too, where your sympathetic nervous system is calm. When you're calm, you're connected, your body can heal, and when you're connected to yourself and others, you can build community, you can build friendships, you can build relationships, your body can heal. A lot of things like chronic conditions that you might have experienced, even things like inflammation, can start to reduce. People have even had tremendous results with things like autoimmune disorders as they work with mindful practices, learning how to calm down their body so that you can know whether you truly are in an environment where you're safe or not. And there was a really great show we had on years and years ago here on Inspired Choices Network, and it was called Grizzly Bears and Two-Year-Olds. And on that, we had a doctor who often talked about, and I think his shows are still around, he often talked about the reaction of grizzly bears and two-year-olds and what they do under stress and duress, under when their lives are coming under threat, and doing different breathing techniques in order to help that. And one of the fastest, easiest are it's like an intermittent breathing. And some people call it a 3-3-6 breath. Some people call it a 4-4-8 breath or a 5-5-10 breath. It's where you breathe in for a certain number, say 4, you hold for 4, and you breathe out for 8. So these different breathing techniques will do different things. Another one that's really good for checking the environment and checking, first calming yourself, is just a regulating breath, which is an in for 5, out for 5. There's ones where you can also induce a little stress in your body so that you can learn how to control it, where you'd be breathing in like a, you might go like 2 sharp ones in and then 1 out. You might go a sharp one in and a sharp one out. You might do holds. There are variations, so many variations. So, but the different breaths will make your body react in different ways. So if you're looking to go calm, to be connected, one of the things I encourage you to do, because you can do this one on your own without having to have somebody really monitor you, where some of the other breath work is really good to have somebody monitor you the first few times you're doing it, so that the one where you're doing either the 3-3-6 or the 4-4-8 can be incredibly helpful in helping your body to be able to be calm in order to be connected, which is a really key component to mindful practice to begin with, being able to know your environment. So as you breathe in for 4, so you're breathing through your nose through 4, you're going to hold 1, 2, 3, 4, out for 8. On that hold, what you can do is you can open your eyes, you can look around your environment, you can check on things, check on some fundamentals. Am I safe? Yeah. Like there's no fire, there's no boulders hitting your house, there's nobody like trying to break into your home. If any of those things are happening, if you are in a place where your house is on fire or there's just been a hurricane, your house just got crashed while you're listening to this, or somebody's trying to break into your house, go take care of those things first. You should be on high alert at that point because you need to survive, and then come back to this breathing later. But if you're not, you're going to check your environment, you're going to notice what's going on, and then on your breath out, you can say to yourself, and this is something that I've noticed that is helpful to add, because sometimes the breath work is one thing, but adding a component to where you're retraining your brain can be really helpful. So when you notice that you're safe, on your breath out, you can say out loud to yourself or just in your head, I am safe. I choose to feel safe. I feel safe. I am safe. My body is safe. My being is safe. You can say some things like that to reassure your body and being that you are safe. And if you're not safe, take action, right? So that's a different part of it. But part of mindfulness is becoming very aware of both your internal environment and how your internal and your environment connects with your body as a whole, like, touching your skin, to the external environment, how your external environment interacts with your internal environment and vice versa, and how sometimes they become a tumbleweed of each other. Like a stress in the environment might even be something that is a scent that's really bothering you, and that could put you on high alert. Maybe you smell a fire and you're like, "Ooh, there's a fire." Like, so we heat our house with fire. So every once in a while, if the fire doesn't smell quite right, we know, "Ooh, we got to check that fire and see what's going on." And those things are built in to save us. Now, if we sat around smelling a fire that wasn't there, or worrying about a fire, even though we live somewhere where the chances of fire are incredibly slim, that's when anxiety kicks in, and uh, all mostly anxieties, right? Because you're worrying about something that A, hasn't happened and might never happen. That's where you need to get your reality checks going of, am I safe? Yes, I am. Breathe out. So play with that while we head to our first commercial break. Do your 4 for in, hold for 4, check, are you safe? If you are, I am safe, breathe out. My body is safe, my being is safe, I am safe. Breathe out for 8. So let's do that as we head to commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we've been talking about how mindfulness can help us with intimacy and deepen our relationships, so strengthen them as well. So the first segment we were talking about, like, what is mindfulness? How do you practice it? What is it essentially? And kind of tapped into some of the benefits of mindfulness. So as a recap, we talked about present moment awareness. We talked about non-judgment. We also looked at different ways to create intentional focus through breath work, that 4-4-8 breath work I asked you to do during the break, and also having curiosity and openness, like having the child's mind. I think that's like, there is a term for that in mindful practice. There's actual like words for it, but I think it translates to child's mind. So what are some of those benefits? We talked a little bit about stress reduction and how when you're in that polyvagal response, when your body is going through fight or flight, it doesn't connect. So as we reduce stress, your body actually gets more calm. It can heal. So what it can also do is allow you to feel safer about connecting with people. So it's going to strengthen relationships. It'll allow you to feel empathic without feeling. So sometimes you can have empathy, but then react to the empathy you're feeling. So it's having empathy and awareness without having to feel overreactive to it. You can feel connection without being burdened by feeling that sense of connection as well. Sometimes when you're highly empathic, the connection can feel like a burden and be exhausting at times. So you can still have these, but you're going to strengthen them and have them in a new way. We're also looking at some of the other benefits, which can be being able to just regulate your emotions. Like that 448 breath work is really great for helping to regulate emotions, especially anxiety. It's one of my favorites for anxiety. Also acknowledging that like most of the time, if you do have anxiety, most people I know that are highly anxious are also highly empathic. So being able to become aware of how aware you are is really helpful. It's like, wow, what am I feeling? And how much of this, I like to go with percentages, like how much of this that I'm feeling is even something that is mine, or am I like feeling somebody else's stresses or sadness or any of those feelings that come up? And a lot of times I'm feeling other people's feels. We do that. It's part of our natures, plural. So why on earth would somebody want to spend the time on cultivating these things? Like who wants to spend the time to like meditate all day? Well, you don't have to meditate all day. A lot of mindfulness can become part of your daily practice. I worked with a lady once who was one of the most incredible mindful practitioners I'd ever met. She didn't get a lot done in her day, but her life was incredibly peaceful to watch. So we worked at a bookstore together. Her name was Helen. And Helen, if you're still alive and listening, I admire you. She had an amazingly calm, peaceful way about her where she would like hold a book. And I might be like exaggerating this, but she would hold a book and then she would have gratitude for the author. She would have gratitude for the pages, for the trees, for where the pages came from, for the printing, for the ink, for all the process, for, the whole process of the printing and the printing press. And, I might be going a little far gone on this, but it would take her several minutes to be present with the book and then put it on the shelf. And the cool thing is when you work at a holistic metaphysical bookstore, all your quirks are just an added addition to the entire environment of working there. So we all were a bit wacky and interesting and all had our own like daily practices that we did. But she was one of the first people that I'd ever met that not only did she talk about it, she lived it, like even to the point where it was incorporated into work for her. So yeah, she was really sweet and cool. And I hope she's still alive. She might be like 90 by now. But anyway, there we go. So having that doesn't have to interfere with your life. It also doesn't have to be as intensive as Helen had it, but it could be that you're having these practices and you're incorporating them into your life in a smaller way, like having the gratitude. Like when we went to break, I was having gratitude for having water. I was also looking for Kleenex and just being grateful for the fact that Kleenexes exist. So, so you'll find that sometimes the simplest things, the simplest gratitudes can help bring you back on track and help alleviate any kind of stress or disorganization in your head and help you be more on track too. It's really good for learning because it helps you focus, especially like when I'm telling you about the story about Helen, like her focus was fully there with that book as she would be there present, walking, even sometimes just standing, clearly just standing, holding a book and having full gratitude for it. It's really, really cool. So if you can imagine that those practices can translate over to a partnership, can you imagine what it would be like to be on the receiving end of that level of awareness? So let's see, how would you feel if you had somebody who had intentional practices with you? Let's go with intentional practice focuses of even just breathing with you. You might be holding your partner in an embrace, and the intentional focus of being able to breathe in together, follow each other's breath, connect to each other's breath, very much like you would do in a tantric practice. and being able to be present with the everything of your partner, having gratitude for the everything and receiving that. So we're talking about on the receiving end. I thought I'd switch this around because I'm a bit of a giver, but the fun practice is like, how is it to receive, be on the receiving end of this level of mindfulness? So if you're receiving somebody's gratitude for you, maybe they're grateful for your everything. They might start off with, and this could be a lot of fun to do with a partner. I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for your eyes. I'm grateful for your eyes that see me the way that they see me. I'm grateful for your mouth, the way that it speaks kind words to me. I'm grateful for your nose, the way that it enjoys the scent of meat. I'm grateful for your ears, the way you listen to me. I'm grateful for your ears and the way that you hear you. I'm grateful for your eyes and the way that you see you. And I'm grateful for your mouth and the way that you say kind words about yourself, right? So it can also be all about the other person too. So you can play with that and move it down, right? I'm grateful for your hands, and I'm grateful that you enjoy touching me with your hands, and I'm grateful that you enjoy touching you with your hands. So if somebody said these things to you, check in with yourself. Would that be weird for you? Is it particularly strange to receive that kind of level of gratitude for somebody about you, about what you are to them and what you see them being to themselves? Is it odd for you to see what people see about you to yourself? Like somebody saying, I'm really grateful for the way that you see you. So if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, wow, thank you. Now, 10 or 15 years ago, I'd be like, what does that mean? And what do you want from me? Because I was more operating from a function of fight or flight. I was just trying to survive. My body wasn't calm enough to be able to truly receive. And so as I've been in relationship with myself in a different way to be able to receive my partner in a different way as well, and then the kindness grows, and then the appreciation and the gratitude grows, and those other elements of intimacy that we talk about all the time also grow, the trust and all of those things, honoring each other. So the that presence, being able to be that present with your partner, even for a few minutes, can be a game changer. One of the things that I often talk to my clients about who are in relationships when it's like relationship coaching with partners is that it's quality over quantity. So if you have only 5 minutes in the day to spend with your partner, spend it fully, spend and invest it is really what the word should be. Invest it in your time with your partner, fully present. 5 minutes of full presence is far greater than 3 hours of just sitting in the room with each other with basically filling space. So if you can be 5 minutes present with each other, it can be an incredible experience to go to bed to wake up to. It can become playful in the way that you have that presence. So you can also create intention, that we're talking about intentionality with this practice. So you can create the intention that before you go to bed, you spend 5 minutes fully present with your partner. You can invest in waking up and investing 5 minutes fully present with your partner. And that is a great way to bookend your day and also to invite you into a better sleep so that your body is calm because it knows it's connected. It's a great way to wake up in the day so you feel secure, so that you know and have a reminder of, I have purpose and I am appreciated. I'm grateful for me and my partner's grateful for me. What a beautiful thing. So know that this practice can only enhance your life. If you find that you've done mindful practices and all it's done is like ruin your life, it's probably because one of you was willing to work on it and the other one wasn't, and it created discord. But if you're both willing to go and become very mindful in your day and in your practice and in your life, you can truly enhance your relationship. it needs to be out of choice as well, rather than out of obligation. Like we have to do this 5 minutes before bed and 5 minutes when we wake up because Milica said so. No, not at all. This is by choice, and it's not an everyday have to. It's lovely if you can. I don't get it in every single day, but we get it in a lot. And it's well worth the 5 minutes and 5 minutes. And if that's all you get in a day, I'm telling you, that 5 minutes is so much better than 3 hours of disconnect and just sitting there staring at something together. So have that, know that you can have that. So we're going to talk about a few things, more things you can do. I mean, I kind of mentioned that actually investing the time to breathe together, see together, discuss things, be grateful together, be grateful for each other, be willing to receive that from your partner, and like crack yourself open, crack that heart chakra open, allow yourself to be vulnerable so that you can receive that from your partner. It's a really key thing, is to allow yourself to be vulnerable with the person that if you're stating that this is a person you truly love, allow yourself to be vulnerable with them. So we're going to head to our next commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. So in this conversation about mindfulness, we've kind of tapped into gratitude as one of the practices you can have with your partner, breath work that you can do together. And also one of the fun things you can do is using touch as one of the other methods of connection. So mindful touch can be very much, well, there are a lot of ways you can do mindful touch, but if you're not really familiar with touch, if you're uncomfortable with touch, one of the things to really know is that there are different kinds of touch. So we have things that are like energetic touch, where there's almost like a hovering or a light touch sort of effect. Then you have deeper, more massage-like touch. Then you might have impact play, where there's like spanking involved. There can be combinations of different touches going on. There can also be, there's several different kinds of touch. So I think what you can do is start to play around with, is it energetic? Is it light? Is it sort of a deeper massage? Is there stroking going on? Is it more like just hands on with no movement? Is there impact going on? If there is impact going on that you enjoy, what kind of tools are you using? And having that kind of conversation and play can be really, really helpful before starting having a mindful touch session. Have the discussion with your partner on what kind of touch they would like that day. And I want to be really specific that it's in that moment, in that day. Sometimes when partners have conversations about what they like in bed, they forget to add that that's for today. Like tomorrow, you might not be into dressing up as Batwoman and, hanging upside down and being spanked, but tomorrow might be the day for it. Like today might be the day for, no costumes and having vanilla sex, where tomorrow might be the full on impact play along with role play along with all kinds of things. Like you could just be like pulling out all the stops the next day. So it's for that day. Although it is helpful to go to my website, milicajelenic.com, and grab the do's, don'ts, maybes list for free and kind of go through some ideas of what you truly know are things that you absolutely love. Those are your do's. Go through your don'ts, things you absolutely do not like, and you don't like, and you're pretty sure 99% that you're not ever going to want to try that with your partner. And then there's the maybes, things that you're willing to explore. Those can be really helpful guidelines. And also on the day of and the day of the play, to be in communication. We talk about it all the time. Consent and communication and curiosity are really key. And so if you have communication about, say, you would like to try some mindful touch, then you can ask your partner, what kind of touch would you like? And if your partner isn't familiar with the idea that there are different kinds of touch, then you can have a talk, have a little talk to them with them about that and discuss, like, do you like when I stroke you gently, or do you like more of holding? Do you like more of massage type touch? Do you want impact? Because you also might like light touch, but you might not like repetitive and light touch. There's a lot of people I know who, they might like light touch, but they just want you to light touch and stop. But if you repeat, like as if you're petting a cat, they will absolutely go nuts. So not nuts in a happy, horny way, nuts in as in like, get off me, now I'm annoyed. So having the communication is very helpful. So know that if your partner is not willing to communicate, there's already going to be some issues. But if you're with a communicative partner who's willing to do some practice with mindful touch and with, any kind of mindful play to increase your intimacy, to, enhance your relationship, then you can get pretty simple with mindful touch. Can be something where you can be so wrapped up that you hardly actually take any effort to do mindful touch. I'm going to give you a very simple example. You can do non-sexual mindful touch. You can do sexual mindful touch. So we kind of break that down. So non-sexual mindful touch would be like just maybe putting your hand on your partner's thigh and connecting, and then noticing. What do you start to notice? With mindfulness, it's about noticing as well, right? So you might notice the warmth. You just might notice what it feels like to have your hand connect with, say, either the skin of their leg, or you might start to notice the hairs on their leg or the material of the clothing they're wearing. And you're just sitting and noticing. That's all you're doing, is you're just noticing and becoming ever present in that moment as you breathe. You can do regular breathing for this, in for 5, out for 5, and just notice. Non-sexual touch, what does that offer you? Sometimes non-sexual touch can actually offer you a very open space to be able to explore more ideas, more curiosities. Also, it takes the pressure off. So if there is any like sexual dysfunction going on, what non-sexual touch can do is take the pressure off of performance. And then you can just connect and see what it feels like. What does your hand feel like connecting with their flesh, their clothing, their whatever it happens to be? What does that feel like for you? How do they feel? What does it feel like for me to have my hand on your thigh? And if you don't have a partner right now to play with that, you can just imagination that I'm touching your thigh. What does that feel like? Are you comfortable with it? Is your body enjoying it? Is it increasing any energy in your body? Is it increasing energy in yours or mine? What do you notice? And then breathe in. 5, out for 5, and just connect. So that's a non-sexual touch, is like hand on, say, the thigh. It's not a sexual, particularly sexual area, although for some people it might be. I'm trying to go with a very just average body part. So sexual touch might be more being mindful about connection and touch of very intentional touch of sexual body parts, right? So nipples, clitoris, penis, vagina, anus, anything where lips as well are considered quite sexual. So anywhere that would be your typical sexual body parts, with the intention of arousal, would be what is sexual touch. Having the intention of arousal is quite part of it, because sexual touch could be involved on feet if you have a feet fetish as well. So, you know what I'm saying, like whatever, there could be a fetish, so you're touching the specific part for arousal purposes. So if you are, say, for example, doing some intentional sexual touch, you might start off with just connection. So the breath in for 5, out for 5. And then you can start with hand on the genitals. Just hand on the genitals, no stroking, just notice. What does it feel like? What you might notice in a moment or two with that patience and connection and breath work of in for 5, out for 5, is that there's a natural throbbing that might start to begin. There might be a natural heat that builds up. If your hand is on a vulva, you might notice a natural wetness starting to show up. Even if your hand is on a penis, you might start to notice that there is like a natural pre-ejaculate starting to come out. So you'll just keep your hand there and just breathe and notice the breath of your partner, and see if you can get your breaths to be in tandem with each other. And you can hold each other as well and just hold and breathe. This, hand on genitals for the intention of arousal. And it needs to be understood before you do this that there is intention of arousal, compared to when there is no intention of arousal, there's just intention of connection and touch. It's different than intention of arousal. So when there is intention of arousal and both parties have consented and agreed to it, I know it sounds technical, but it's important that we have consent. Consent is sexy, by the way. Consent is super sexy. Maybe I should make a t-shirt that says consent is sexy. Hashtag consent is sexy. Wherever you're listening to this, if you just want to like put a little hashtag consent is sexy underneath, then I know you're listening. So hashtag consent is sexy. Hand on those body parts, whatever the intention is, whether it's vulva or penis, whatever we're talking about. And then with intention of movement, you might want to ask your partner, because we're going through mindfulness, you might want to do some noticing. So it's like, oh, I noticed that there's more heat in your, say, your vulva. Would you like me to stroke your clitoris? Would you like me to play with your labia? And your partner might say yes. And how lovely, right? Now there's communication. So it starts to build communication and open conversation about things that people usually take for granted and don't talk about. They just assume, you know, we're partners. Let's take off our clothes and let's slam our genitals together. No, you can actually have intention, and it's really sexy. Consent is so sexy. So get that hand. I'm just going into my imagination zone. If you're watching me and you're like, hey, she's got her eyes closed. Yeah, I'm in imagination zone. So hand on the genitals. You're just enjoying. Your partner might be asking you, is it okay if I if I stroke, whether it's the penis, whether it's the clitoris, whether it's playing with the labia, whatever it happens to be. And notice that if they are playing with your genitals, notice how you feel about that. Notice how your body is responding to it, and notice how your partner is responding. Are they very intent? Are they watching? Are they enthusiastic? There's something extra sexy about an enthusiastic lover who wants to like observe and touch your genitals with the most mindful, intentional approach, with kindness, with gratitude for you being their lover. Like it's so delightful. So having that connection and having your body feel that deeply appreciated and so much gratitude for your body, it may just start to get turned on just as a result of that connection. And it doesn't even take a lot of stroking. It doesn't take a lot of effort. You might find that the energy is building, the orgasmic energy is building. You can literally bring a body to orgasm through mindfulness. It takes practice. It takes the willingness to connect and be vulnerable in that connection. And it takes communication. So that is a fun thing to begin to play with. Again, not having that as a target, but more like if we're going for arousal, it could be fun to try and see if the body would like to go to orgasm or not, or to go to climax or not. It could be fun, but don't make it the focus. Make the focus the connection, full connection to the partner, to yourself, and to your partner. That's why we started off with breath work, to connect with you first, then connect with your partner, and hold and see, and just see where it goes. Because I know it seems so simple, but it's the simplicity of it. It makes it absolutely beautiful. And also the intensity that comes with you being able to touch your partner and just be present and appreciative is so valuable, and they'll feel it, they'll know it, and their body will respond to that gratitude far greater than you trying to figure out some rhythm like counting to 6, which I had a partner who I could hear his brain count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pause. Like I could hear his brain, like he had a rhythm. I think he like read it in Playboy or something. And God bless him, he was reading and like trying to figure out, trying to educate himself. But it was kind of by rote, right? And like you could feel it. So what's more sexy is connection and figuring out your rhythm, what your rhythm is, what your partner's rhythm is. Do those rhythms go together? Do they become a symphony? Is it super sexy? Is it awkward? Like just notice it and don't judge it and see where it goes. We're going to head to our next and last commercial break. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show, with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. This is The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. So, tonight we've been talking about mindfulness and how it can start to enhance and deepen your intimacy and your connection with your partner. Mindfulness is a big word, right? It's a big word that you're hearing a lot, probably all over the internet. People have been talking about it a lot, especially over the last 10 to 15 years. And what I think happens a lot is that it becomes a word, it becomes a bit of a temporary practice in people's lives, and it doesn't become integrated into their lives. So, how do you, and I speak that from experience, like I have gone, into mindful practices and then it didn't integrate fully, and then it did, and then eventually it did. So, mindful practices have eventually become just part of my life. And for me, it actually, I'm trying to like think like when and how did that really integrate? And I think it was honestly just like practice, practice, practice. But also the more I worked with clients on a regular basis, like several clients a day, the more I'm finding that putting that reminder out there. And my number one thing, especially when working with couples, is to remember to have gratitude for yourself and your partner. Because if you're, especially if your partner's having a hard time with having gratitude for you, you need to have gratitude for you primarily, and then also have gratitude for your partner. So it's not necessarily for the things they do, because nobody wants to just be loved for all the things you give them, but it can be gratitude for the way you are. Maybe gratitude because of their humor, that their humor brightens brightens them up, which is a reflection of so many things, and it reflects in the environment. And there can be so many ways to have gratitude for your partner. If you're not sure, there are I can't think of any books offhand, but I bet you if you searched, how do you have gratitude? What are great words for showing your partner that you have gratitude for them? There are lots of ways to do it. If you have specific scenarios in your home, one of the things that you can usually tell that your partner wants gratitude for is something that they're probably complaining about you a lot, like never does the dishes. Well, then what your partner wants to hear is that you're grateful for them for always looking after the things in the house that keep the house clean, tidy, and organized, right? So that's probably what you want to hear. Instead, what's coming out is you never help with blah blah blah. And if you are living in a scenario with an adult who doesn't actually know how to do chores without you telling them, you're living actually with a child, and that person does need to get some coaching and start to grow up. So there's no need for you to have to remind, say, adults to do their laundry, clean the bathroom, do the dishes. Like that's unnecessary. You're adults. There are things that need to be done. No need for reminders. If you find that you're living with that a lot, um, hey, give me a shout, and see what we can do to start to change those habits. Those are habits, and they are not helpful habits. They're faulty habits. Just like we can have faulty postural habits, we can also have other kinds of faulty habits. So it'd be something to be able to navigate and shift in your life so that you can actually be a contribution to your partner so that they can have gratitude for you quite easily without even trying. It's just natural gratitude. Like, wow, it's great to see you. And I love seeing you in the morning. I'm grateful you woke up. It's great to see. Like we say silly things like that in this house, but they're not silly. They're truly genuine, and they're easy to say because they're true. So when you do have gratitude, that's really, really helpful with mindfulness, being able to breathe with your partner, taking that time, taking and investing. So it's like taking is an interesting word too, isn't it? So choosing to have the time and invest that time with your partner, and choose to invest the time with yourself as well to do these mindful practices so that you can become more aware, so you can become more connected, so you can have greater intimacy, because you're going to feel more deeply. You're going to enjoy each other more deeply. That, you know, how great is that? How much fun can you have with that? How much fun can you have truly enjoying your partner? I bet you can have a lot. So start these practices and remember those simple breathing techniques of in for 4, hold for 4. out
Thank you for
8.
choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone with sex, relationship, and intimacy coach, Milica Jelenic. We'll return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.